Hello, welcome. This is Lotus. So today I wanted to talk about a subject that comes up periodically within the awakening community, particularly fairly early on, but it also has different phases and stages in which this process happens. So what I want to talk about is heart purification, or fourth chakra purification. And the purification process on any of the chakras, it is multidimensional, right? It's physical, it's energetic. It moves into the energetic field, the physical field, multidimensional field beyond the immediate energetic body. And it's also a lived experience, right? It is, in many cases, a deep, deep, heartfelt experience. So most of the time, we're pretty programmed through life. We learn to sort of protect ourselves, harden the heart, shut the heart center down, um, afraid of being too open. And some people are very open, which may also bring in a lot of heartache or a lot of other people's energies. But we're going to talk just about the middle of the road. There can be, as every topic is, it's big, it's vast, and there are multi layers and multi levels to this entire awakening journey that we're on. So I want to talk about just a couple key points that are common for people to experience within the heart center. And to recognize that when these experiences happen, the more that you understand them, probably, the more ease and grace there will be with them, and the easier it is to actually surrender to what is happening rather than thinking there's something wrong, rather than, trying to stop it, or it's unpleasant, so you'd rather not experience it, or you're just confused about it. So as the heart starts to open, from whatever stage it is, suffice it to say, even those that are highly open have their own dynamics and blockages within their own systems. And it's part of moving through this world, right? If we took in all of that energy, all of the energy of people around us, like empaths do, and I just want to say really quick here, this is different than if you're an empathic, okay? Because being an empathic, you might feel really deeply connected all the time, right? And experiencing some of what we talk about, which could be part of the healing, or it could be things that you just need to really work on deeper in order to discern those two things. So if you're empathic, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But this is not necessarily from an empathic perspective, but it's a lived, embodied experience. And see what resonates with you, and whatever doesn't, you can just put to the side, or maybe it will land for you later down the road. So when our heart starts to, let's just say, get activated, right, into a higher frequency and higher level of working energetically, spiritually, what's going to happen is any of the qualities or expressions of consciousness that are held in the heart center are going to go through their own transformation. And as we all know, the first step is usually dumping, clearing, healing, acknowledging, coming face to face with the shadow of how we experience love or how we don't experience love, what we have brought with us into this lifetime, as well as what we've gone through in this lifetime. So there can be very physical sensations first and foremost. And here's what I want to say. If you ever have any worries about any physical conditions, of course, always check them out. That will put your mind at rest. And then you can start to recognize, oh, this is an energetic manifestation that is expressing through my physical systems, how my physiology works, my biology works, how my chemistry works. So one of the things that can start to happen can be very physical, and it can be sensations in your chest. It can feel like tightness. It can feel like burning. It can feel like there's a stretching sensation that is happening through the chest center is where that's going to happen and be felt primarily. Another thing that can be common is our ribs around the heart chakra, right? Both in front and behind. The ribs can pop out very easily. And while things are clearing, while the heart is reorienting both the physical heart and the energetic heart, the ribs can be a little bit more active and having a hard time staying set appropriately. And part of it is really a great reflection on our literal anatomy changes with each purification that we go through. Our physical skeletal structure can go through changes when the heart is opening. And as energy starts to expand or move through wherever there might be areas of confining or restriction. So that's a couple different things that you might be aware of. Palpitations can also be something that becomes common. And that can become really common when there's a lot of influx happening of energies that are really high frequency, that are consisting of heart opening, heart purification frequencies. So you'll start to feel perhaps either an increase if you already have palpitations, or let's say you've never had palpitations and you start having heart palpitations. That can be really alarming for a lot of people. So, of course, just know whatever is physical is always also energetic. They're never separate, as I've said before. And it's always good to put your mind at ease, right? And to just make sure that all other areas of your being are operating and optimally functioning, safely. So as the heart palpitations, they might just come and go. They might be really random. And they might be really intense sometimes, and they might just be blah, blah, like just every now and then. So those are very physical sensations in the body. So if we start to look at then what happens emotionally, one of the things that can get really confusing to people is that they're on their journey and maybe they've done some healing work and they feel like they've leveled out. They're at a really stable plateau, for instance, right? We have plateaus, but we never have like the end game. So they might be at a plateau, and out of nowhere, they might begin just feeling deep, deep, deep mourning and grief. Now, it may be their own personal mourning and grief that is clearing, and it's free fall, right? It's just, or free flowing. And there really isn't any memories, there aren't really any storylines that we can put to it. It's just overwhelming sadness, grief, maybe even the sensations, or the experience of depression that may set in for a period of time. And let me just say something about depression, because that can be a common experience along this journey. From my perspective, from working with people and just my own direct experience, depression is really, especially in this, and I'm not talking about people who are chemically um, depressed, where it's like it's a medical condition, but I'm talking about in general. Depression is either an integration period where things are finding new homes and we feel a little lost and confused. We feel that deep weight and heaviness. We feel grief. We feel maybe apathy. And that actually is appropriate for short time experiences. Um, Depression happens, as I think everybody has heard, things that we are repressing, experiences, emotions, thought forms that we're trying not to look at. And so we push things down. We're not even necessarily conscious of it. It changes over long periods of time. It changes our chemistry, right? It changes all sorts of things in us. But when we're going through this process, it can be a normal experience. So that's for everybody to figure out for themselves, but also just to be really aware that we're very, very quick to put labels on emotional processes when we haven't really dove into understanding our deeper emotional, soulful landscape. Okay, so that's part of the embodiment work, that's part of shadow work, all of that. So when the heart is starting to purify, there may be things that are rising up to the surface. There might be just deep depression, free floating, or not even floating, just sort of like these senses of doom, of grief, of loss, of lostness. That's appropriate in this situation. And the other part that people will start to experience is like outpourings of grief and sadness. Again, this may be for you personally, but it also can be for the collective. And anybody who's part of their role is collective clearing, that you are a vehicle and vessel to support the collective clearing, you're going to feel and and be guided how to work through this. So for instance, back in 2003, I think it was, no, doesn't matter. Back in the early 2000s, I was going through this heart opening period of time. It was like my second round where I was really aware that, like, whoa, there's some serious purification happening on a very deep level, physically and energetically. And I was going down to market one day in Portland, and Portland historically has had a pretty substantial homeless community, which I've always had a very deep resonance and compassion for. But on this day, well, it was more than a day, it was probably a good couple months. Whenever I would see the homeless population, my heart, my whole chest literally felt like it was breaking with so much grief, with so much pain, with so much desperation. So I was feeling a lot of these emotions that were clearly not mine. And, to the point of like sobbing, loud and hard. And fortunately, I understood what was happening, but I've had other people, clients and just people that I know who have reached out to me asking me about these waves that come through and that they don't really understand what's happening. They don't know where it's coming from. So just know that collective clearing, even if that isn't a part of your purpose, it it can still happen for you as it is supposed to, when it's supposed to, right? From a deep soul level connection. So that can be just a window in time, or it can last for a period of time. So there are ways then to begin to work with that, to understand that. But the biggest key, the takeaway is learning how to surrender into grief without labeling or judging it, or without trying to get away from it or make it stop. Okay? Because this is a divine process at hand. This is a sacred event. And it's a very intimate event that literally is not only, if it's for the collective or even windows of the collective, it is supporting the energetics of humanity, as well as moving your own energy through so you can get to a higher frequency, so you can heal that part of yourself as well. So that can be overwhelming, and the quickest way through is acceptance and being present with it and allowing the waves, taking self-care, taking time for self-care during the waves, and then letting it go, right? No ruminating on it, no analyzing it too much, just like, whew, okay, good, right? Onward. So that is another way that can start to show up. And that's probably one of the more dramatic ways that it can start to show up. So another way, right, is learning how to love again. Learning how to love in more pure, innocent, deeper, unguarded ways. And this will start to come in when you're done, or in the middle perhaps, of your inner child work. When you start to return back to your own innocence before, at least in this time, in this lifetime, before you started having to guard and protect yourself, before those first deep, big heartaches. So there's this returning back to a purity, returning back to an innocence, returning back to experiencing what is it like to feel vulnerable and open, and learning to feel safe within that. And again, this usually starts and will continue on when you do your own inner healing, inner child healing, self-love. Because the more that we come in to our own empowered embodiment via self-love, self-acceptance, self-honor, the safer that we intrinsically become in allowing our heart space to flower open, to begin to access unconditional love, to begin to access faith and trust if our heart gets broken, or if something hurts our feelings, or if we're going through a grief process. It becomes normal. We know how to self-source doing that. We know how to rest into it and not be afraid of it, but instead find and feel into that beautiful tenderness and rest into that experience. and it becomes a beautiful, beautiful, intimate connection with oneself and whatever else is happening. And it allows us then to be able to share love more openly, hold love more openly, less judgment, less conditions on other people, needing people to be certain ways, show up in certain ways, right? So that starts to become that more awakened, purified heart where we're able to just set people free, right? Allowing people to be who they are and loving them anyway. It doesn't mean that we stay perhaps connected in that relationship, that we, you know, um, affirm certain behaviors. That doesn't mean that. It means I can love you even if this is not okay or appropriate for me. Or I can love you just where you're at. I don't need anything from you. Right? And so this starts to become then the behaviors, the the lived consciousness that takes place through the purified heart. Um, and then, it is that being able to continue to open into more of an unconditional love, loving just because love is a frequency and an energy that we're choosing, right? We start then to recognize that, oh, I can just choose love. I can just be in love with everything, with life, with the lessons that I'm learning. I can even be in love with the struggle that I might be in the midst of, because I realize that what it's showing me, even the struggle, is where I'm separate from love, where I somehow am creating a division from wholeness, from oneness, from unification, which is the true state. But but we're used to creating the divisions from loving because we have conditions, right? And we have fear and we have protection and we have right and wrong, good and bad. And those are all divisions that we set up to separate ourselves. But as we start to move more into a purified heart, we don't need those divisions anymore. We can start to stay more in the unification. And when things come up that are creating the polarity ping pong effect, right? Then we go, oh, okay. This is just teaching me and showing me where I'm creating separation rather than just loving that this is all a part of what is. So those are the main let's say thresholds that we go through, that we access, and then there are some beyond that, but I think that these are a really good place to begin to work with and practice with and just to become more aware of and sit with, right? Come in and learn to feel at home in our body, even if it feels like there's discord and our heart might be breaking, or we want to shut down, right? We want to protect ourselves. And how do we recognize that and make a different choice and know it's okay? I'm okay if I open, if I soften. And it doesn't mean that I won't perhaps be hurt, but I welcome the opportunity to learn how to keep neutralizing or holding tenderly even the things that feel painful so that they no longer feel like I have to divide myself from them. I can experience more of life. I can experience more kinds of connection. And then I love myself more and more along the way. That's it. All right. Purify on, everybody. Keep moving that energy. Keep allowing the expansion with grace and ease. Take care.